Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Criterion, and this time we take a look at the 1985 Kafkaesque masterpiece by Terry Gilliam, Brazil, getting a 4K upgrade in the collection. Terry Gilliam has had a lot of attention in the collection, with many of his films getting a 4K upgrade. Now we come to what many class as his masterwork. That's Brazil from 1985. Brazil is a dystopian science fiction black comedy, and it was written by Gilliam, Charles McKeown and Tom Stoppard, and it features Jonathan Pryce, Robert De Niro, Katherine Helmond, Ian Holm, Bob Hoskins, Michael Palin, Ian Richardson, Peter Vaughan and Kim Greist. And the film centres on Sam Lowry. He's a low-ranking bureaucrat trying to find a woman who appears in his dreams, while he's working in a mind-numbing job and living in a small flat set in a dystopian world in which there's an over-reliance on poorly maintained and rather whimsical machines, and where people are found guilty of crimes that are liable for the costs of their interrogation by being tortured. Brazil's satire of technocracy, bureaucracy, hyper-surveillance, corporate Stasism and state capitalism is reminiscent of George Orwell's 1949 novel 1984, and it's also being referred to as Kafkaesque, as well as absurdist. Now, Brazil was Gilliam's first true post-Python movie. The final movie made by the troupe was The Meaning of Life, which hit screens in 1983. And for Gilliam, being released from Monty's coils represented an opportunity to spread his creative wings. Brazil's dark humour owes much to Python, but the absence of the Python regulars in it, except of course Michael Palin, marks this as something different. The film's at home with the two Gilliam-directed features to bookend it, of course. That's 1981's Time Bandits and 1988's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Now, all three movies have similar sensibilities, but Brazil is by far the darkest of the three. In fact, until 12 Monkeys, it was the darkest thing for which Gilliam had been responsible as a director. Now, the movie focuses on Sam Lowry, played in the film by Jonathan Pryce, a mid-level worker in the massive bureaucratic engine that dominates the film's world. Sam is as meek as they come. He submits to his petty tyrannical boss, Mr. Kurtzman, played in the film by Ian Holm, without a struggle. And in his dreams, he is a great hero, though, flying high up in the clouds and rescuing a damsel in distress, and battling a giant samurai as well. But in reality, he's just another cog in a spirit-crushing machine. Sam's life changes when he discovers an error in the records. An Archibald Buttle was taken from his home, tortured and killed. However, this Buttle should have been Tuttle, a suspected terrorist. And when Sam visits Buttle's wife at home to deliver a refund check, a very, very funny scene, he encounters Jill Layton, that's Kim Greist, the girl from his dreams. And by pursuing Jill, who may be targeted for elimination as part of a scheme to cover up the Buttle-Tuttle mistake, Sam puts himself at risk. He further endangers his position when he meets the real Tuttle, played by Robert De Niro, and helps the man avoid detection. Brazil is full of twisted, odd sequences and tangential subplots. For instance, there's Sam's mother, Katherine Helmond, who's obsessed with the illusion of youth that plastic surgery can provide her. Sam's friend, Jack Lint, played by Michael Palin, is a loving family man who just happens to make his living by torturing and killing people. And then there's the vindictive Spur, Bob Hoskins, who's been brought in to fix a broken air conditioning unit in Sam's apartment, and he is determined to make life a living hell for poor Sam. Now, these and other elements of the Brazil plot, seemingly unrelated, of course, to the primary narrative, emphasise the kind of world in which events transpire, while at the same time sounding a cautionary note about the direction in which modern society was moving at the time. Brazil transpires in two realms. There's the light, airy fantasy world of Sam's dreams and the dark, dreary reality where he spends his days. Gilliam's penchant for breathtaking visuals is most strongly evident in the dream sequences, which are interspersed throughout the movie. And on the other hand, Sam's reality has a 40s noir feel to it. Some sequences are shot to recall images of Humphrey Bogart on the hunt, and one character, Harvey Lime, may be named as a homage to The Third Man's Harry Lime. Now, this is sci-fi noir, though, a view of what the 1980s might have looked at, viewed from the perspective of a 1940s filmmaker. Orwell's influence is not entirely unexpected here, since Brazil was actually in pre-production during 1984. Viewed in its running time of 2 hours and 22 minutes entirety, Brazil is a fascinating, visually interesting satire of life in a world where paperwork has gone berserk, and Big Brother never stops watching. And at its heart, it's not the most original idea, but Gilliam's approach to it infuses it with freshness. It's ultimately a downer, of course, and that's where the problems for Brazil began. Universal executives viewed Gilliam's cut and decided it was unsuitable for release. In their opinion, it was an art house movie, and they wanted something with more public appeal. So they instead went to work on it, editing about 45 minutes, substituting alternate takes, adding some deleted material, and re-editing the entire thing into what has been dubbed as the Love Conquers All cut. Now, Gilliam rejected association with the studio edition, and Universal Studios refused to release Gilliam's sanctioned version. A stalemate. Now, the full battle over Brazil, as it was dubbed at the time, is more complicated than what can be related in this particular edition of Let's Talk Criterion, but it came down, at the end, to a public war of words between Gilliam and Universal's Sid Sheinberg, with both men preferring escalation to backing down. In the end, Gilliam triumphed by arranging a series of unauthorized screenings for Los Angeles area film critics, and they responded by naming Brazil 1985's Best Picture. Embarrassed that a film he was holding from release should thus be honoured, Sheinberg let Gilliam's version of Brazil see the light of day. However, the cut of the film sold into television syndication was indeed the Love Conquers All cut. And both versions are available for home viewing on this set. And it's instructive to watch both of them and to see how much a movie can be shaped in the editing room. Now, in fact, the full story is actually related in the documentary on the supplemental features on the disc, and that is included on the Blu-ray. Now, in casting Brazil, Gilliam chose primarily low-profile but talented character actors, many of them British. The part of Sam Lowry had been written with Jonathan Pryce in mind, and the thespian responded with a nuanced portrayal of a mousy man who desperately wishes he could be heroic. Other casting, of course, includes Michael Palin. He uses his likability to emphasise the duality of Jack, a loving husband and father in one scene, slick information gatherer in another scene. And then we have British stalwart Ian Holm, essaying Mr. Kurtzman as a typical bureaucrat, wielding no real power at all, but acting tyrannical nevertheless. And if there's a failure in Gilliam's casting, I would have to say it's Kim Greist, playing the part of Jill. Her performance is uninteresting, and she never seems like much of a dream girl, really, although maybe that was Gilliam's point all along. Now, of course, there's Robert De Niro. Now, De Niro provided Brazil's star power, and he actually fought alongside Gilliam for its full uncut US release, and this was a departure for the actor in two ways. First, it was a rare non-starring appearance for De Niro, although he had more screen time, in fact, than Jim Broadbent and Bob Hoskins, both of whom had small parts. He is by no means the film's star. Now, the music for the film is interesting as well. In the film, Jeff Muldaur performed a version of Ari Barroso's 1939 song Aguarela do Brasil, and composer Michael Kamen uses it as a leitmotif in the film, with a rendition included over one of the breathtaking fantasy sequences where it's mainly used. Michael Kamen asked Kate Bush to record a version, which she did, but it wasn't used in the film or indeed on the original soundtrack album, but it has since been included on subsequent releases of the soundtrack. Now, Brazil is the ultimate fatalistic film. It challenges set parameters and the organisation built up to keep the individual down. And in that respect, it exposes the system's faults through wry humour, expressive visuals and defiant social commentary. And here began Gilliam's continued personal and professional hardships in filming his dreams. And through characters like Sam Lowry, he, of course, continues his pursuits in filmmaking to rebel against any stoic acceptance of dispassion and bureaucracy. He's been well voiced in the past for that. His battle is one of imagination, possibility and hope, and the film is ironically and painfully more realistic. Brazil understands the need for escape when suppressed by the world's limitations, but it also acknowledges the despair of dreamy ideals. They are, after all, ideals, and by definition, they're unreachable. Now, the 4K restoration brings more detail with its Dolby HDR encode, but it is not a night and day upgrade by any means. It has a more natural look to it, and it still retains the soft focus look of the film, and it's not over-sharpened, but colour is allowed to shine throughout. Now, the sound still remains in DTS HD 2.0 surround. It was thought that maybe perhaps a 5.1 mix was going to be made available, and the 4K digital restoration of this director's cut was, of course, supervised and approved by Terry Gilliam himself. Brazil gets a 4K upgrade in the collection and comes in a 3-disc presentation with the 4K UHD and a Blu-ray with the film and a third Blu-ray with these supplemental features. Audio commentary by Gilliam. What is Brazil? Rob Hedden's on-set documentary. The Production Notebook, a collection of interviews and video essays featuring a trove of Brasiliana taken from Gilliam's personal collection. The Battle of Brazil. That's a documentary about the film's contentious release. It's hosted by Jack Matthews and is based on his book of the same name. Love Conquers All version, the studio's 94-minute happy ending cut of Brazil with commentary by Brazil expert David Morgan. There is a trailer for the film, and of course, from the original Blu-ray release, we have the same essay by film critic David Sterrett. And the cover art for Brazil is based on one of the theatrical posters. This cautionary tale by Terry Gilliam is one of the great films of the 1980s and has come to be esteemed alongside anti-totalitarian works by the likes of George Orwell, Aldous Huxley and Kurt Vonnegut. And in terms of set design, cinematography, music and effects, Brazil is a non-stop dazzler. The film has a running time of 143 minutes and comes in a 1:8:5:1 aspect ratio and comes to the collection as a 4K Blu-ray combo as Existing Spine 51, releasing on Tuesday, the 3rd of June. In the next edition of Let's Talk Criterion, we'll be taking a look at Paul Mazursky's film Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, getting its 4K upgrade in the collection. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.